Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with an awesome new knife console for you on the Efros and Alliance Designs Ice Lite. This is a new knife from a new company that I have not had on the channel before. Alliance Designs is a company very much like Monterey Bay Knives and the Mass Drop guys over there doing all of the EDC stuff and the knives, where they are a company that does not directly manufacture knives, but they are a group of people interested in bringing custom knives into the high-end production world. Just like with Monterey Bay Knives and most of the Mass Drop knives recently, as well as a whole lot of the other knives out there in the mid-tech production world right now, they started with a Ray Laconico design. Ray Laconico has become a bit ubiquitous in the production knife world right now, and honestly, it's becoming a little long in the tooth. I feel like we have 38 versions of the very same knife. However, this is a breath of fresh air in the form of a new custom maker that I am otherwise unfamiliar with. That is Brian Efros, or Brian Efros. I apologize, I don't know how to pronounce your name, sir. But I have been following him on Instagram for some time. He makes some very beautiful and highly detailed knives. He makes a nice quality piece. And this is his first foray, as far as I know, into the production knife world. Alliance Designs has chosen to go with Riot knives in the manufacturing of this knife, and that makes it have a Riot level pricing. This is going to be coming in at $350 for the Ice Lite. Is the Ice Lite worth all $350 of those dollars? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at it and see whether or not you feel that way about the knife. First of all, I want to say that they have done a very nice job of translating the custom knife into a production model. They have certainly kept the design, the overall lines, and the attitude of the regular custom model. And I think that they've added some very nice features to keep this seemingly simple but very, very well made. So let's go ahead and get some vital signs on the Ice Lite. Maybe you've noticed already, this is a very small knife with under 3 inches of blade up front. It's really just about 2.9 inches of blade. Overall length, you're coming in at a hair under 7 inches. I think on the website it says 6.92. It's just a hair under 7 inches. The overall handle is coming in at just about 4 inches with an effective grip area at 3.5 inches. Despite the fact that it is so small in length, it does not mean that it is necessarily small in its overall size. I'm going to tear this thing. In the other dimensions, the blade stock is coming in at there we go, 156 thousandths, so that's a fairly standard blade stock, a very thick blade stock for such a small knife. And the handle thickness is coming in at 0.48 inches, so it stays under half an inch. But sometimes I like to see on these smaller knives a bit of a thinner blade stock. I get the idea of the stronger is better sort of thing, but this is going to be a bit of a thick thing given its type of grind. So let us bring out another couple of knives for a size comparison. I'm going to do a very bad job of this because both the Paramilitary 2 and the Para 3 are significantly larger than this knife. So the Para 3 is still much bigger. Bringing out any other knives for comparison is going to be rather difficult. Here's my BBM. This has a 3.25 inch blade. This is probably the only other small knife I have in my collection. So you can see this is much smaller than what is typical for my wheelhouse. But I wanted to get this in hand because a lot of folks have been asking me about it, and I'm very curious about this maker and about this knife and about the company Alliance Designs. So let's break this knife down anatomically and see if we can learn a little bit more about all of the above. So up front is this 3-inch or maybe sub 3-inch blade right here. This is done in RWL 34. Right away, that's something that's a little bit frustrating because RWL is not the most expensive steel or the most high-end steel in the world. It's produced by the Damasteel folks. It is a powdered metallurgical process, and it is a basic reconstruction of CPM 154, which is a rather basic knife steel. It is a fine steel. It's going to work very well. RWL has been tested and proven as a great steel, and I'm not complaining. All I'm saying is that at $350, perhaps we might like to see something that we know is among the very best steels in the entire world, like an M390 or the like, because people who are going to be buying these knives know what they're buying, and they know that RWL is not necessarily the most premium steel. Moving past that, it is a small blade, and so small blades are very nice for the EDC community. It's nice to have a high quality small blade available on the market because there are not very many of them. Having a small blade in an office setting or even a medical setting like me is a nice thing so you don't scare people. This one has, like I mentioned, a very thick blade stock and then a rather shallow flat grind that looks a bit like a saber grind. It's got a sort of a modified drop point style look here. It's basically a simple drop point. But what I'm trying to say is it is flat ground only halfway up, and so it remains a bit of a wedge. This is really not a knife that is going to be great for slicing duties, and that's a bit of a letdown because I like it when smaller knives like this are also very focused towards an excellent cutting tool. Now, I'm not saying this won't cut. This has a nice edge on it, and it's ground well enough that you can use it for a lot of EDC tasks, but it's much too thick for what I think should be at this size profile. It's very nicely centered. The blade looks beautiful. The finishes are quite nice. In true Riot fashion, there is a beautiful machine satin on the primary bevel. There's a nice horizontal satin on the flats. And as you can see, this is done with a dual thumb stud setup. I have seen some people spider flicking the knife. I guess I could do that there. One of the things that has been a little bit interesting to me is the fact that the detent is incredibly strong on this knife. It is a thumb stud deployment only, so let's go ahead and move back to the pivot and detent and talk about that. It is a thumb stud deployment only, and so you really have to learn how to hold this knife. If you have a larger hand like I do, a size 8 sterile glove, getting your thumb in the right position for that is something of a chore. I really have to find the right position and then really give it a strong push, because if I don't, I will not be able to open the knife. Not because I'm touching the lock bar or anything like that, it's that the detent is quite strong and the knife is very small. And so I have to do a bit of finger acrobatics to really get this knife open. So that is a bit of an annoyance to me and a reason that I don't normally get into knives at this size. If you have smaller hands than I have, that is an ergonomic issue that you may not have, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. That being said, once you learn how to open the knife, it has a very satisfying release and opening action. One of the things that I think people are really enjoying is the fact that it is a non-flipper thumb stud deployment knife with a strong detent. That is not a common thing. A lot of times companies will dial back the detent and make it rather soft, and so you don't get that bolt action rifle style opening like you do on this knife. And so that is a tactile thing that if you enjoy, it is certainly present on this knife. One of the things that I've noticed in carrying this knife is that the thumb studs do protrude a little bit beyond the scales. That is because, like I mentioned, there's not really an easy place to access this other than this spot right here. They have put the thumb studs up against the frame. They do not function as stop lugs, but they've put it in such a place that you have to have it come out from the level of the scale. What I've noticed that does in carrying is that it causes the thumb stud to occasionally catch on the pocket or on the, I wear these sometimes in my waistband of my scrubs, and so it will catch on that as well. It's something that I noticed with an old Gavco of mine. It also happens with this knife. While it's not a deal breaker, it's a mildly annoying thing for folks that like to carry their knives and pull them out from time to time to play with them. It's just something that you may know. The height of the thumb stud on the lock side, you may notice, gets snagged a little bit on some things. These high traction, very tall thumb studs do that sometimes. I realize that I'm nitpicking, but I'm trying to talk about turning a custom knife into a production knife, and I'm trying to suggest small things that help with these production knives that are meant to be used every day and meant to be carried like this. Custom knives are a different thing altogether. It's a bit like toning down a race car for the road. You have to have these sort of ergonomic considerations. Moving back to the pivot, further, this thing is running on ball bearings. It's very smooth on the inside. It's going to be ceramic bearings. It's going to be a ceramic detent without a steel lock bar insert. They do mention that the lock bar has been carbonized, just like the custom knife. And so what I have noticed is that there is no lock stick. There is the slightest bit of the lock bar sort of grab, which means that the geometry is set up quite nicely. I do see that they have done some work on the inside there. There's already maybe some graphite in there to prevent that. So I don't mind not having a steel lock bar insert, but some people find that to be offensive or problematic, and so that is just something that you should be aware of. The closing action is not the smoothest or the I should say not the fastest, but it does drop shut, and I do believe that this knife is going to break in beautifully over time. Once that detent track is really broken in, I bet you this thing will just be unbelievably smooth. Moving back to the handles, we have high-grade titanium everywhere. The knife is not significantly lightened. I don't know if I've shown you the weight as of yet. Without significant internal milling, this 3-inch bladed knife comes in at 4.14 ounces, which is significantly above my golden ratio of 1:1. 4 ounces is not that difficult to carry, but in a knife this small, I would have liked to see it a little bit lighter, because that's the benefit of a smaller knife, that you can have it be lighter and still have it be very capable. Some simple internal milling would have gone a very long way on this knife. Moreover, a non sort of 3/4 backspacer might have helped with the weight. A full piece of titanium there, and then a full 3D milled pocket clip. The pocket clip works reasonably well. It's not overly stiff. It has a nice amount of spring. It has a tall ramp right here with the contouring that actually opens the mouth of that ramp to make it easy to get in and out of the pocket. And so it functions quite well. The knife, despite its short size, still has about 1 inch sticking out of the pocket when it's in there. I would have liked to see that ride a little bit more deeply, again, as a production knife, EDC size sort of thing. Here we go, I'll show you that level right there. The custom appearance of the clip is rather cool, and I do like that, but I do think there are some trade-offs for having a 3D milled clip like that on such a small knife. So what do I think of the knife overall? Well, in my hand, it's a bit small, and so you're going to have to understand that I'm not a huge fan of 3-inch knives. They seem to be a bit too small for me, but even my larger hands get a full 4-finger grip on this knife, and so that is going to make it appealing for some people who are traditionally, like me, not into 3-inch knives, because I get a full, confident 4-finger grip on this knife. That being said, it's a rather small blade for the overall size of the knife. There's a bit of a handle overhang here at the bottom. There's a bit of bulk here in the handle that might not otherwise need to be there. And so it's not the greatest blade to handle ratio on this small guy. But that being said, you get a full grip and then a smaller blade, so it's not quite as scary and maybe a bit more capable for dudes with larger hands. The ergonomics are okay otherwise. I will say that there is a bit of a sharp point back here on the handle, so that as I am having to manipulate the knife and hold it in this way, jam this corner into my palm in order to hold it to open the knife, I notice that this jabs me. It's not painful, but it's a little bit uncomfortable, and it is noticeable every single time. These little kinds of things add up in a knife that, like I've been mentioning, is designed to be an EDC knife, and so that is a small annoyance to me. The pocket clip does not provide any hot spots, and so I don't mind that at all. I will say that the quality in hand feels excellent. This thing feels like a custom knife. It feels bank vault solid. It's exquisitely made. Riyadh has done a very good job with the fit and the finish and the details. All of the blade looks beautiful. The thumb studs are beautiful. The pivot hardware is very nice and tasteful. The handle finishing, even though it appears simple, is very uniform and quite nice. The nice bead blasted finish. But is this knife worth $350? I am going to say I don't think so. It's quite a nice knife. It is available on urbanedcsupply.com. Yes, I'll leave a link down below to find this knife. It's only available on that website. It's $350. It's a small knife. If you're into small, high-end knives and you're looking for a new 3-inch high-end knife, definitely pick this up. You're not going to be disappointed. But I think that this knife, in the spectrum of the other knives that are available on the market today, might be a little bit overpriced. I think we're paying a bit of a Riyadh tax for the fact that it's made by them, when really and truly the materials and the size may not add up to really justify that in everyone's mind. While I think that they've done a beautiful job of bringing one of Brian Efros's knives into reality, this one may not be for me. But I'm going to leave this to you guys to make your judgment. I am just one guy with one opinion I really think that it's built beautifully, and if you need a small knife, definitely take a look at this guy right here. So let me know what y'all think of this knife, the Ice Lite, down in the comments below. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram as Dr. Frunkey. Follow Brian Efros. I'll leave a link to his Instagram and maybe if he has a website down below. And as always, guys, this is Dr. Frunkey saying, take care.